Hi there, and welcome to Strange Times Poetry Broadcast. I'm coming to you live from the Poetry Bookshelf to bring you some uplifting poems. Today I am talking all about boats and ferries, which I would say is more of a image than a theme. But I think with the image of the ferry, there's the idea of crossing between different stages of life or different stages in general, and also the concept of freedom, the open sea. I'm yearning for it in my heart, and I think I just wanted to read these poems because I do feel like they open up a space, even if it's just a space in the mind to go into when you're feeling a little cooped up. And so the three poems that I brought today all talk about boats and ferries and lots of good stuff like that. So the first thing I wanted to read was perhaps a familiar just segment of Crossing Brooklyn Ferry by Walt Whitman. This was one of my first favorite poems, and I remember sitting together with friends and just reading the whole thing out loud because of its expansiveness, of the way that Whitman projects, his speaker projects himself into the future in a magical way. So I'm going to read a little piece of that first. It avails not, time nor place, distance avails not. I am with you, you men and women of a generation, or ever so many generations hence. Just as you feel when you look on the river and sky, so I felt. Just as any of you is one of a living crowd, I was one of a crowd. Just as you are refreshed by the gladness of the river and the bright flow, I was refreshed. Just as you stand and lean on the rail, yet hurry with the swift current, I stood yet was hurried. Just as you look on the numberless mass of ships and the thick-stemmed pipes of steamboats, I looked. I, too many and many a time crossed the river of old, watched the 12th-month seagulls, saw them high in the air floating with motionless wings, oscillating their bodies, saw how the glistening yellow lit up parts of their bodies and left the rest in strong shadow, saw the slow-wheeling circles and the gradual edging toward the south, saw the reflection of the summer sky in the water, had my eyes dazzled by the shimmering track of beams, looked at the fine centrifugal forces, spokes of light round the shape of my head in the sunlit water, looked on the haze on the hills southward and southwestward, looked on the vapor as it flew in fleeces tinged with violet, looked toward the lower bay to notice the vessels arriving, saw their approach, saw aboard those that were near me, saw the white sails of schooners and sloops, saw the ships at anchor, the sailors at work in the rigging or out astride the spars, the round masts, the swinging motion of the hulls, the slender serpentine pennants, the large and small steamers in motion, the pilots in their pilot houses, the white wake left by the passage, the quick tremulous whirl of the wheels, the flags of all nations, the falling of them at sunset, the scalloped edge waves in the twilight, the ladled cups, the frogs and crests and glistening, the stretch afar growing dimmer and dimmer, the gray walls of the granite storehouses by the dock. On the river, the shadowy group, the big steam tug closely flanked on each side by the barges, the hayboat, the belated lighter. On the neighboring shore, the fires from the foundry chimneys burning bright and glaringly into the night, casting their flicker of black, contrasted with wild red and yellow light over the tops of houses and down into the clefts of streets. One of the things I love about this is just the speed, that effusiveness of imagery that just builds and builds and builds. And I love how Whitman just says, I am with you. We've felt the same thing. It's amazing how a poet can project themselves into people, into the future. And I love this moment, standing, I stood yet was hurried. The ability on the ferry to both be still in your body, but also be part of this extreme motion of everything going on around you. In some ways, we too stand and are hurried in all the things that we must do in this time, and yet we are still in our homes, shut down. I think it's a different feeling, though. I think the stillness here is an awe of the motion, and in the poem, and maybe in our life right now, it's more of terror. Anyway, the next poem that I'm going to read is called The Ferry by Nathan McLain. It's a very different take. on Ferries, and it's a broken up sestina. So a sestina is a poem that's written in stanzas of 6 lines, and there's 6 words, one at the end of each of the first 6 lines, and they rotate, and that's how you create the next line. So you have to reach that word each time. But Nathan broke them up. And while Nathan McLain and I are not close, he did pick one of the first poems that I ever got published, and I really appreciated that. Made me feel like I was entering into this world of poetry in a much more serious way than before. The Ferry. I still had a lover. Maybe let's start there. I hitched a ride to Boston where I missed the ferry by what seemed like minutes. But time can work that way in the mind. I was in love, or wanted to be in love, and there was distance everywhere, is maybe a better way to put it. Though what exactly was it? I hadn't given it a designation. I looked for the boat, it wasn't there. Only the dock, a few seagulls, a blue distance. If I was supposed to wave goodbye, I missed my chance. Though what did I care? So in love with solitude, at least I was at the time. It seemed easy being lonely, watching time lapse, that boat long dispatched. I'd missed it, yet there I was waving, like a fool in love, perhaps. At what? I couldn't tell. I wasn't there when the ferry left, remember? I missed it, or they went on without me. The distance made it hard to see clearly where distance ended, or if it did. Or I didn't make it in time to see. Maybe time was against me. I missed the ferry. I had no money. The ferryman said it was fine and smiled at me. Smiled. There was the shore and me wanting to be in love, though I wasn't. I carried what I could. Love? I didn't have room for it. In the distance, I swore my solitude waved. I missed it where it was headed, sure, but there was hardly time for that. The boat was early. I boarded it and stood on the stern. Part of me was missing, but there had to be a cost. The part I missed, my mind, a rough sea I might have loved, watching lap were I not so inside it. My mind, the fish, too. The shore distant as the voice I thought I heard in it, as time itself. The ferry was late. I was there hoping I missed it. I didn't trust the distance, lovely as it seemed. I didn't trust time, nor where it carried me. I knew what was there. I love how this poem just takes this limited palette of words and twists them as you go deeper and deeper into this conundrum of being in love but missing the boat. Maybe something with the relationship is being missed. There's this missed opportunity, but then as the poem rotates through, the speaker is saying, maybe I should have missed it. I was there hoping I missed it. And it's interesting how it rotates into that from, oh, I missed the ferry to I hope I missed it. So ownership over this missing the boat. It becomes something that the speaker takes ownership of. So very interesting how that works out. And I'm just going to read a very small fragment of mine. It's called Burano. So Burano is a fishing town in Italy, but there's many fishing towns like this where the houses are painted bright colors and the fishermen paint their boats the same colors as their houses so that they'll know. The idea is so that they know where their house is when they come home, so they remember to go into the right house to find the right woman to spend the night with. Burano. Like the fisherman, I paint my boat the color of home. I think sometimes, no matter where I go, it's still, no matter where in the world, no matter where we go, we've still painted it, we've still carried who we are with us. And that's what this little fragment is all about. And maybe someday it will find a home in a larger poem. I don't know. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane, and good night. Bye!